Hi friends! Today's video is about training our kids to suffer well. We live in a really broken world. All you have to do is watch the news or scroll your news feed to see all kinds of things that cause physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, and this is nothing new. Every history book is filled with suffering. It exists. In this week's blog, which you can find in the description of this video, you can read about the Bible book of Joel. Joel was a prophet of God, and he lived about 2,500-ish years ago. And he records this crazy plague of locusts that attacked the southern kingdom of Judah. Now, this is not the locusts like the 10 plagues, like Pharaoh, Moses, Charlton Heston. Okay, it's after that. And these locust swarms have come upon these cities. They have eaten everything. These people in the book of Joel are in a drought. They are starving. They are in poverty. They are suffering. Okay? And in this book, Joel is very honest. He's like, suffering happens, and none of us can escape the suffering in this world, whether it's something that we brought upon ourselves or it's something outside of us, like swarms of creepy insects that have wreaked havoc on our lives. Okay, whatever it is, suffering happens. This is what terrifies me as a parent. So much of my anxiety as a mom is related to the fear that my children will somehow suffer. Okay, that either something will happen to one of my children that they themselves caused, or that something horrible will happen to one of my children, because horrible things happen to people. A diagnosis, an accident, a random act of violence. Like, dear God, please don't let my children suffer in any way. I don't want anything bad for them. I've wrestled with this a lot this week as I have written about the book of Joel. What does it mean that the Lord God is our creator? He is our sustainer. He is the ultimate parent. We call him good Father, right? We sing about it. He supposedly loves us with a love that we cannot fathom as humans. And yet, he allows so much suffering in this world. How can those two things both be true? How can they go together? My husband and I, we take turns putting our kids to bed at night. And I remember when my little girl was around 2 years old, you know, and she's trying to put words to things, and she's so inquisitive. She's beginning to really try to figure out how things work. And there was a lamp in her room. It was right next to the chair where we would read her nighttime books. And she always loved, right before I would put her in bed, she would climb up there and she would tug on that little chain and she would turn the lights out. And like, that was her task. And she was so proud of it. And she loved to do that. But every night we would have the exact same conversation. The lamp would be on and she would point and she would say, "Mommy, what's that?" And I would say, "That's the light bulb, baby. Don't touch it. It's hot." Every night. "Mommy, what's that?" "That's the light bulb, baby. Don't touch it. It's hot." Now, I need us all to be honest about who my daughter is, okay? She did one day, after multiple conversations, touch the light bulb. She was just too intrigued by it. She couldn't help herself. And when she did, it was hot. Now, not degree burn hot, not like go to the hospital hot, okay? But it was hot. And hopefully, in her little 2-year-old mind, she thought to herself, "Mommy tells me the truth. I should listen to everything she says." Now, some of you might be thinking, if it's too hot to touch, Danielle, like, why didn't you move the lamp? Why didn't you put it up higher somewhere, like out of reach? Why didn't you get one of those bulbs that like isn't hot to the touch? Why didn't you do that? Well, for one, those light bulbs are expensive, so I'm not doing that. Number two, she was so happy about her role. I mean, she loved feeling so independent. She was so proud of herself when she would tug on that little chain. It was part of her fun responsibility of the night. But more than that, I can't protect her from everything. I can't keep her from every hot bulb in her life. I can't remove every single thing that might cause her harm. I can't keep her in a bubble. I might want to. The temptation to do so may seem very real inside of me, but I shouldn't. I shouldn't do that, because the truth is, I need her to learn about suffering. I need her to learn what it means to suffer a little bit in the safe environment of our home, in our controlled space. She has to learn that sometimes life will burn you. And if I protect her from every little thing, then when she does leave the safe environment of our home, and she hasn't learned from those little sufferings, then she will have no clue how to handle the locusts when they come. And they will come because suffering happens. Suffering happens to all of us in some way. You know, years ago, I heard a counselor talk about how important it is as a parent to incorporate something called safe suffering into our home. Safe suffering is suffering in a way that helps grow and strengthen us. It helps us be resilient. It teaches us how to cope without truly suffering in a way that leads us to harm, that leads us to deep pain. For instance, that hot light bulb is right within her reach. I can either remove it so that it never has the chance to hurt her, or I can leave it there, and if she touches it, it won't hurt her long term, but it will hopefully teach her. It will teach her in those little pains. See, as a parent, I find myself wanting to go to all kinds of great lengths to keep my children from any kind of suffering. I spend all day, don't climb that tree. Don't climb that tree. Don't put that in your mouth. Don't run with that. Don't play with that. Now, it's so important, obviously, that we keep our children safe. Like, don't play in oncoming traffic. Like, that should be a thing, okay, that we teach. But for me, and maybe you are like me in some way, there are also a whole lot of ways that I am tempted to keep my kids from suffering because I simply don't want them to struggle. I don't want them to have a hard time. I don't want them to be sad. I don't want them to feel pain or hurt. I don't want them to be inconvenienced. I don't want them to be bored. Even, we're not helping our kids by doing that. I'm not helping my kids. In some ways, instead, I'm making them soft. I'm making them spoiled when the world needs them to be strong, needs them to be tough for whatever might come. So practicing safe suffering in your home may look like all kinds of things, depending on the age of your children and your situation. For me, in the season of my kids' lives, safe suffering may look like, let him play with that friend. Let her experiment with that hobby. Let him get that bad grade. Let her suffer the consequences of that action. Like, we are not meant to go around saving our kids all the time. We shouldn't do it. It's really important that we remove the safety net from them in some ways so that they fall a little. Not from 60 feet in the air, but in small ways that teach them to get back up. To get back up, to be more responsible for their actions, to be strong when hard things come, to shake it off, because things come. The locusts come. The bad stuff happens. As I studied the book of Joel, I kept thinking about how God, the creator of me and you, the one who knit each of us together in the womb, the one who seeks us out, the one who loves us in a way that even I as a parent, I don't think I will never fully understand. It's that same God who also sustains a world that is filled with suffering. And as good as our Father is in heaven, as good as he is, God's goal for my life as his child is not to protect me from suffering. God is not up in the heavenlies looking down at all of his creation that he loves thinking, how can I keep all of my people from going through anything difficult? That's not what he's thinking. I wish he was. But God's concern in our suffering is not how to get rid of it as fast as he can, to rid our lives of suffering. God's concern in our suffering is that we would grow to know him more, that we would learn to rely on him in our suffering, that we would realize that we have comfort around us that is from him, that we grow. Jesus Christ was very honest about suffering. He was very honest. He knew it existed. He is obviously of the Father. He acknowledged it. But this is what he reminded his followers in John 16. This is shortly before he suffered death on the cross. He is talking to them about the things that they are going to go through, the sufferings that they're going to have. And this is what he says. He says, I tell you these things so that in me you will have peace. He says, in this world, you will have trouble, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. When he died and he defeated death, though we don't feel it yet, that has already won. He has already overcome. So, parents, take heart. Take heart. Suffering will not be forever. It is like pain like no other to watch our kids go through things that we would rather, with everything in us, take upon ourselves. But it is in the struggles, it is in the sufferings of this world that we find God. It is in those things that God becomes more real to us. He becomes closer to us. We feel him closer to us than ever before. It's such a temptation to want our kids to be happy all the time. It's such a temptation for us to want them to feel comfort, for their life to be easy. But more than anything, may we intentionally help them learn to be strong in the brokenness. Because it is in the brokenness that we are so often led back to who God is. That is how we know him. I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Push that button, subscribe, so you can make sure that you get the latest videos. If you have safe suffering tips of your own that you intentionally do in your home, I would love for you to put that in the comments. Visit slatedforgrace.com for more on the book of Joel and other things. I hope you have a wonderful day.